Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well folks, the lawsuits are officially starting, meaning Kyle Rittenhouse is officially on the warpath with his target set, and probably the most positive news that we have so far is that Kyle Rittenhouse just added Covington kid Nicholas Sandmann's lawyer to his legal team. Friends, it seems like all the memes are going to become reality, more specifically this one. I guess we'll just use it as the meme of the day. Floyd Mayweather sitting at the dining room table with just $100 bills stacked across, of course with Kyle Rittenhouse's face superimposed over his body. He's about to take social media, the media, and media figures for millions, and in Kyle Rittenhouse's own words, he's going to make them pay for what they did to him. And folks, I think he's right on point, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Let me give you guys an update on the Media Accountability Project, which of course is Kyle's new organization. We got some stuff to get into, but before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so this is possibly the most interesting news thus far. Nicholas Sandmann lawyer joins Kyle Rittenhouse's legal team, says that there are up to 15 solid defamation cases against large defendants like Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, sure. To answer your first question with regard to what we plan to do with the tech companies, of course we're looking at those, and I think the first one that I'm taking a look at is Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg announced in a videotape that what Kyle was involved in was a mass murder, and that's clearly defamatory as well. That's not protected by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. In my opinion, Section 230 allows you to take down violent things or things that people don't want to hear, but telling the truth about Kyle is not something that Section 230 enabled Facebook to take down. So that's an example of what we plan to do with tech and also plan to do in the defamation arena.
And by defamation arena, do you mean with so-called news organizations?
Absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned some of that on the way in, and certainly Kyle was charged with a crime. News organizations are allowed to report on that, but calling somebody a murderer in certain circumstances can be actionable. Other things that media personalities, people on social media said were clearly defamatory. I think your comment about calling Kyle a white supremacist is made up out of thin air. I don't know how a media can claim that they didn't make a statement made up out of thin air without engaging in actual malice or most certainly negligence. So I think that we have some strong grounds to proceed. We're starting to look at all those. We're going to evaluate them and look for opportunities to hold the media and to hold tech accountable as Kyle's promised. Well, I think we're going to sue for the defamatory statements that Kyle engaged in mass murder, and B, for violations of Section 230 by taking down posts that were told the truth about Kyle. So in essence, they suppressed the truth by taking down truthful posts, and they did that in violation of Section 230.
Well,
that Communications
exactly right.
Decency Act does not provide that protection. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. It's not just that they defamed him, but they also took down any defense of him or the facts about him.
And look, I've been saying that Nicholas Sandmann seems to have a very clear, very, very strong case when it comes to suing these figures in the media and these tech giants over clear, in my opinion, blatant character defamation and damages. But I am no legal expert. I cover these stories as a hobby, and for the most part I'm educating myself as I go. Nicholas Sandmann's lawyer, on the other hand, well, I'd say considering his track record, considering the fact that he took so many of these massive media companies for probably tens of millions of dollars for Nicholas Sandmann, the fact that he's now joining Kyle Rittenhouse's legal team probably tells you all that you need to know. He wouldn't be joining the team if he didn't think it was an open and shut case. And he might even be taking the thing pro bono, just trying to take a percentage of the cut when they win in court. He's probably seeing millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. As he stated, 10 to 15 major targets. He seems to also mirror the sentiment that Kyle Rittenhouse has a very strong case, and so he's willing to take it on. And look, the biggest and the hardest thing to prove in these cases is damage. But once again, just like Nicholas Sandmann, Kyle Rittenhouse has a very, very strong case, a strong argument.
Well, we're going to make the media pay for what they did to me. They made it hard for me to live a normal life. I can't go out into public. I can't go to the store. It's hard for me to go anywhere without security. Shoot, doing basic things like taking my dog to the dog park is difficult. So they made it really difficult to be normal, and they affected future job opportunities to me. I don't think I'll ever be able to work or get a job because I'm afraid an employer may not hire me.
They made it hard for him to live a normal life. In fact, they've basically made it impossible. For this young kid, I mean, at the time he was 17 years old, they made it impossible for him to ever live like a normal human being ever again. If Kyle Rittenhouse was to meet the love of his life in California, and it just happened to work out that way and his wife had her entire life there, and he viewed his best option of happiness to move in liberal California, he would be unable to do so without being constantly harassed and under constant threat, possible violence and intimidation and attack. And that is true damage. And it's the same thing for employment. And it's not just necessarily the scenario that he mentioned, where the employer might discriminate against him or not want to hire him, but if he was to get a job somewhere and someone was to recognize him or a coworker would have a vendetta against him, and his information would be leaked, then once again, not only does he face possible termination, but he faces possible doxing and intimidation and again threats of violence. That's true damage, and that's irreversible. He will never be able to live a normal day in his life. He'll never be able to go out in public without paranoia, without people staring at him or yelling at him or, God forbid, knock on wood, anybody going even further than that. And yes, the media plays a very, very big role in creating that scenario. And it's the same thing that we constantly see from the media, and frankly, Democrats in general. They wield the power of the mob. Never forget Maxine Waters.
Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
That right there is what the media and left-wing figures unleashed on Kyle Rittenhouse's life. Angry, vicious, masked leftist criminals, because that's exactly what they are, harassing, intimidating, and assaulting people on the other political side. They crafted a narrative and politicized this entire thing. I mean, for Pete's sakes, people on Twitter and other platforms still actually believe that the people who assaulted Kyle Rittenhouse on that infamous day and lost their lives in conclusion, I'm doing everything in my power to not call them victims because they aren't. They were the criminals. They were the perpetrators. But people still falsely believe that those individuals were black. The amount of fake news, the amount of gaslighting, the amount of BS propaganda and narratives that surrounded this situation, and most importantly, the amount of direct, provable defamation that didn't just happen prior and during, but also after. Even after Kyle Rittenhouse was fully acquitted by a 12-person impartial jury, he was acquitted by a jury of people from different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different genders, and from different parts of the political spectrum, all unanimously, all together said he was not guilty of the crime. Despite that fact, individuals like Whoopi Goldberg and others continued to repeatedly call Kyle Rittenhouse a murderer, or say that he was guilty of murder. Look, once again, I'm not a legal expert, but in my book, that's defamation, and there's damage. You have a responsibility when you're a figure in the media, when you're a public figure and you're on camera or on air and millions of people are listening. You have that power and you are spreading that narrative to all of those people. And then Kyle Rittenhouse has to live his life and get a job and start a family and just try to be normal. Well, then that becomes an impossible task for this young man that had his life upended. And again, it's not to say that Kyle Rittenhouse was absolutely perfect. Should he have gone there? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Should he have got himself involved? Who knows? But at the end of the day, the courts found that he was not guilty of any crimes. He was attacked and assaulted by a mob of vicious leftist rioting individuals, and he defended himself. And that is what the legal system determined. Yet these people continue to slander him, call him a terrorist, claim that he's part of an alt-right white nationalist militia, claim that he's guilty of murder or a mass shooter. And look, it's one thing when a random Twitter user says it, but it's another thing entirely when a public figure with a massive following, sometimes a voice that spreads to millions, disseminates these false, destructive, and defamatory narratives, counter to the evidence and counter to the facts. And it's another thing entirely when people like Mark Zuckerberg issue some of the statements that they did a couple years ago. It looks like Kyle Rittenhouse and the Media Accountability Project are going to be doing exactly that, holding them all accountable. And you know what? Good for him. And I'll keep you guys updated the whole way. That's the update that I got for you guys today. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. I'm going to get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.